Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. What time of year is it? It's testing time. Yay! Wait. I might have just done the opposite of what I actually feel. That is true. So, testing time. So, one of the great things that is teaching in higher education is that I don't have to participate in the grossness that is K-12 standardized tests. Yes! However, here is the tough part. I teach future teachers and current teachers the culture that is teaching in K-12 schools. And part of that culture is, you guessed it, symbol crash. Standardized testing. Standardized testing isn't explicitly wrong or awful, but sometimes the way it gets used is pretty darn awful. What it started off as and where it's gone are two very different places. So I thought one thing that might be helpful for us to discuss is a brief history of standardized education. Education. So tests in education have been around for a long time, and so have standardized tests, meaning an objective test that covers a wide area of knowledge for a large amount of students. It can be norm reference, meaning we have percentile rankings for those taking the test, or criterion reference, providing absolute scores. One of the most famous criterion reference standardized tests is the SAT. By 1934, James Bryant Conant, Henry Chesney, and Carl C. Brigham had created and utilized the SAT as a way to decide what students would be ready for Harvard and Princeton. The SAT and its rival, the ACT, have expanded and become the standard test for college entrance, giving out information especially pertinent in both math and verbal skills. The standardized nature of these tests were meant to even the playing field, to give anyone who might have the right kind of intelligence to have the opportunity to be accepted to a school, whether or not they came from the right town or the right family. And right after the Depression and World War II, we were feeling pretty darn good about all things American, especially our free and public education, which we realized after traveling the world during the war, not every country had. Our system further heightened the American dream, meaning that anyone, despite their circumstances, could rise above and provide our nation with awesome, especially science. Yay for world advancement! But then Cold War and space race and Sputnik. Suddenly with Sputnik, this Russian satellite that got into space before the United States did, we started doubting that we were really doing as great a job in education as we could be doing. Out of this began a push to emphasize science and technology alongside reading, writing, and arithmetic. By 1965, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act was passed and required elementary and secondary schools to begin standardized testing. And depending on the diagnostic information, schools receive various levels of financial support. Public education is for all. And during this time, lots of bills were passed to help that really be true. And then we get to 1983. A Nation at Risk was a report commissioned by Ronald Reagan. It stated that American education was failing based on standardized test information. And in order for education to improve, every content area should develop a set of standards. So these initial standards that were developed out of this report were state standards. By the 90s, every state had complied with the mandate. Yay for us! In 2001, we get No Child Left Behind. This is a reauthorization of ESEA from 1965. With NCLB, however, the stakes were raised on how these yearly standardized tests were utilized. NCLB demands adequate yearly progress, meaning that every child continues to grow in every content area as measured by the standardized test. Under NCLB, schools face steep penalties when overall growth is unsatisfactory, going so far as to close a school. Testing has never been fun, but these days, the stress level is bordering on absurd. And now, the latest craze in standardized education, Common Core. Remember how the content area standards were created by each state? Well, guess what? That's exactly what Common Core changes. The Common Core Standards Initiative seeks to unify content area standards throughout the United States. At this point, the Common Core standards are for, you guessed it, reading and math. The initiative seeks to expand upon these initial two content areas. The reception to Common Core has not been warm. And while at this point 46 states initially adopted the Common Core standards, 12 have sought legislative approval to repeal the adopted standards. And Indiana has already backed the Hans Hostler out. For me, it's never been the fact that we have tests or standards. However, I wonder, given a nation as large and as diverse as ours, is it a good idea to only have one set of standards? One set of standards that ignores and devalues the cultural differences of each state, each town, each child. John Dewey, one of my favorite educational philosophers, said that education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. The best thing we can do for our students is help them become seekers of knowledge and yearn for more understanding throughout their whole life. These are the sorts of things that no test can measure. I am all for meaningful assessment, but only when it's used in a way that's appropriate. Currently, these tests are being used as weapons, and to be frank, plenty of standardized tests aren't very meaningful. But for now, a haiku. The tests and info aren't necessarily wrong. It's how you use them. Yeah, this one's over 4 minutes. I don't care. This is important.